The weekend rush was in full swing at the luxury department store. Bright lights bounced off polished marble floors, jazz music hummed softly in the background, and racks of designer clothes stood neatly arranged like silent guardians of wealth. Customers of all kinds filled the space. Wealthy women in tailored suits, influencers posing for selfies near perfume counters, and curious shoppers hoping for a taste of luxury they could rarely afford. The store was alive with chatter, but all of that was about to shift. Among the crowd walked Danielle Carter, a black woman in her mid-30s with a calm yet commanding presence. She didn't come draped in diamonds or flanked by bodyguards. Instead, she wore a crisp white blouse, simple jeans, and sneakers, clothes that let her blend into the crowd. But what no one could see was the truth. Danielle was the billionaire founder and owner of this very retail empire. She had built it from nothing, brick by brick, after years of sleepless nights and battles against people who underestimated her. Today, she wasn't here as an owner. She came quietly, intending to see how customers were treated when no one knew who they were. As Danielle reached the luxury handbag section, she admired a sleek black leather tote. Her fingertips traced its stitching. Precise, flawless, worth nearly $5,000. She smiled faintly, proud of the craftsmanship her company supported. But before she could examine it further, a harsh voice pierced the air. "Hey, put that down." The sudden command silenced the surrounding chatter. A tall man in a fitted gray suit approached, his face twisted in disdain. He was Richard Hale, the store's manager, known among staff for his arrogance. He looked Danielle up and down, his eyes narrowing. "Do you even know how much that costs?" he sneered, his tone dripping with contempt. "This isn't some thrift store where you can just grab and gawk. Customers like you are always here to touch what you'll never buy." Gasps erupted from the crowd. A young woman whispered, "Did he just say that?" A man pulled out his phone, already recording. Danielle kept her composure. She turned her gaze toward Richard, her voice calm but steady. "I don't think that's how you should speak to anyone in your store." Richard chuckled bitterly. "My store? Don't make me laugh. People like you should be grateful we even let you inside. Now step away before I have security escort you out." The murmurs grew louder, some shoppers shifting uncomfortably, others shaking their heads in disbelief. One woman dared to step forward. "Sir, she hasn't done anything wrong. Stay out of this." Richard barked, cutting her off. His face reddened with anger. Then, in a moment that froze time itself, he raised his hand and slapped Danielle across the face. The sound echoed through the store like a gunshot. Phones flew up into the air, recording from every angle. Gasps turned into shouts. "What is wrong with you? Call the police." Did that just happen? Danielle's head tilted slightly from the force, but her eyes never lost their calm fire. She lifted her hand slowly, touching her cheek where his palm had struck. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Shoppers waited for her to scream, cry, or collapse. Instead, she stood taller. Her voice, though quiet, carried like thunder. "You'll regret that." Richard smirked, still drunk on his false sense of authority. "No, ma'am," he said smugly. "You'll regret ever walking in here." But as Danielle looked at him, unshaken, her silence carried a weight the crowd couldn't explain. They didn't know yet, but the man who had just humiliated her wasn't only wrong. He had slapped the very billionaire who owned his future. The store's atmosphere had shifted from glamorous to suffocating. The crowd buzzed with disbelief, dozens of phones recording from every angle, capturing Richard Hale's arrogance for the world to see. Some customers whispered, "She should call the police," while others muttered about lawsuits. But Danielle Carter didn't rush, didn't shout. She only straightened her blouse, her calm eyes fixed on the man who had just humiliated her. "Security?" Richard barked, waving his hand dramatically. "Get this woman out before she causes more trouble." Two guards appeared, but they hesitated. They had seen everything, and their eyes flickered nervously between Danielle and the manager. "Sir," one guard said carefully, "she didn't do anything." "Didn't do anything?" Richard snapped. She was manhandling merchandise she could never afford. Do I need to repeat myself? Get her out. But Danielle lifted her hand, silencing them without a word. Her poise was magnetic commanding. She turned to a younger employee, a nervous assistant manager who had watched the whole scene unfold. Take me to the corporate office, she said firmly. The young man froze. His heart raced because he knew something Richard didn't. He had seen Danielle before, her photo on internal documents, her name stamped across company-wide emails. She wasn't just a customer. She was the founder, the CEO, the woman who built the empire from scratch. Still, Richard scoffed. You think you can walk into our executive office? What a joke. Do you have any idea who I am? Danielle's lips curved into the faintest smile. Do you? Moments later, she was escorted upstairs, leaving Richard fuming on the sales floor. The crowd parted like water, whispers following her every step. Phones streamed live to social media, hashtags began trending, hashtag Justice for Danielle, hashtag Store Manager Exposed, and hashtag Slap Backfired. When Danielle entered the glass-walled corporate office, silence fell. Executives, already alerted by the viral videos circulating online, rushed to greet her with panicked faces. Some bowed their heads, others stammered apologies. Danielle didn't speak at first. She simply opened a sleek leather folder she carried and placed it on the conference table. Inside were official documents signed with her name, Danielle Carter, founder and chief executive officer. The assistant manager who had escorted her nearly trembled out of his shoes. The executive stood stiff, pale with dread, and Richard, storming in behind her, suddenly stopped cold. What is this?" he muttered, his voice cracking. Danielle finally looked at him, her eyes sharp as steel. "This," she said, tapping the papers, "is proof that the woman you slapped, insulted, and dragged in front of a crowd isn't just your customer. I'm your employer. I'm the reason this store exists. Every light above your head, every paycheck you've ever received, it's because of me." The room fell into an icy silence. Richard's confidence crumbled like ash. "I didn't know," he stammered. You thought wrong," Danielle cut him off. "And you showed the entire world exactly who you are." Around them, executives shifted uncomfortably. They knew the fallout would be brutal, and nothing could stop it now. Richard had made the unforgivable mistake of disrespecting the very billionaire who signed his paychecks. By sunrise the next day, the story had become a global headline. Every news outlet blared the same words: "Store manager slaps black woman. She's actually the billionaire owner." The video had exploded across social media, garnering millions of views within hours. Comment sections overflowed with outrage, praise for Danielle's composure, and calls for Richard's firing. The luxury store, once a place of prestige, was now under fire for allowing such blatant disrespect to occur. Stockholders panicked, emails poured into corporate offices, and reporters camped outside the flagship location. Danielle, however, remained calm. She had seen worse battles on her climb to the top, and she knew exactly how to turn this into a lesson the world would never forget. At noon, Danielle held a press conference outside the very store where it happened. A sea of cameras and microphones filled the plaza. Customers, activists, and curious onlookers packed the sidewalks. Danielle stepped up to the podium in a tailored black suit, radiating both elegance and authority. Yesterday, she began, her voice steady but powerful. "I entered one of my stores as a customer. I expected respect, fairness, and dignity. Instead, I was judged by my skin, by my clothes, and by false assumptions about my worth. I was slapped in front of strangers, but let me be clear, what was taken from me was not dignity, because dignity cannot be taken. What was revealed was a truth many face every day." The crowd erupted in applause. Some chanted her name, others shouted justice. Danielle let the moment sink in before continuing. "This company was built to represent excellence and opportunity, and I will not tolerate prejudice within it." Effective immediately, Richard Hale has been terminated from his position as store manager. The cameras clicked furiously. Richard's name began trending instantly. His Arrogance had cost him his career, his reputation, and his standing in the industry. He had gone from smug gatekeeper to public disgrace overnight. But Danielle wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice resonating with conviction. We are launching nationwide diversity training across every store, investing in scholarships for underprivileged youth, and creating programs to ensure that no customer, no matter their race, background, or appearance, will ever face what I faced yesterday. The crowd roared with approval. Tears streamed down the faces of some attendees who felt seen, who felt represented. Danielle wasn't just punishing one man, she was rewriting the culture of her entire empire. As she stepped away from the podium, reporters shouted questions, but Danielle only smiled. The same woman who had been humiliated in front of a crowd had transformed her pain into progress. Her wealth wasn't her greatest power. Her strength, resilience, and refusal to bow to injustice were. And as Richard's name sank into infamy, Danielle's rose higher than ever. She wasn't just the billionaire who owned the store. She had become a symbol of what happens when dignity meets power and justice finally answers arrogance.